Isn't it funny how it's always the weekends where you're not expecting anything to happen? That's the weekend that things will happen in college football. And historically, from what I've seen as a college football fan over the years, that is the weekend that chaos is going to happen, so to speak. You know, this past weekend, definitely not of the norm of what you would expect when you looked at last week's slate of games this past Saturday, and you looked at it, you really didn't see any matchups that really stuck out that you were excited to watch. If you were anything like me, you probably were interested in watching Iowa and Iowa State. Maybe Kansas, Missouri, and the border war was interesting to you. Maybe Michigan and Oklahoma. I know that was the big marquee matchup of the weekend, but regardless, when we looked at the slate, I remember saying it was Cupcake Week. It was going to be Snooze-a-Palooza, or however I worded it, Snooze Fest, whatever else. It didn't disappoint. There was a lot of really good football games on this past Saturday, and really just the slate just shocked me. And we'll get into a few on recapping them here. We'll get into a few of those straight away. Definitely some some shockers. Y'all know exactly the kind of games I'm going to talk about. But then we also had some teams that maybe struggled a little bit, still won, but maybe had a little bit of a more difficult time putting lesser opponents away. Talk about those as well. And then we also had the teams, that dropped 50, 60, 70 points, like Ohio State, Florida State, dropping 70 plus on their opponents, Alabama dropping 73, Tennessee scoring 72. So we'll get into those as well. We'll kind of cover that. First, though, we'll get into it because I know that a lot of people are wanting to hear my take on it. A lot of people have talked about it. In the last couple days, I have talked at great lengths about the situation in Gainesville. Y'all, hold on. Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, so apparently that was Billy Napier trying to get into the Florida facilities this morning. Somebody sent me a Ring camera video. Anyway, going into that one. So, elephant in the room, let's go ahead and talk about USF Florida. And I have some takes. And Florida fans, if you were one of those Florida fans that's very sensitive to criticism, very sensitive to me going after your fan base for a minute, I probably wouldn't listen if I were you, because let's not put all of the blame on Billy Napier's shoulders here. And hear me out. Let's stop. Let me stop right there and let me explain what I mean by that. It's because here just a few years ago, you had a guy that was the coach at the University of Florida. Great quarterback coach, great coach. He's not of the elite level. I'm not categorizing him in there with Saban and Kirby and, coaches like that. Regardless, though, a good coach. Very good at coaching quarterbacks, mainly taking young quarterbacks. We saw him do, very good things with one by the name of Tim Tebow. Also was one of the lead recruiters recruiting Cam Newton. And then we saw him take a 3-star prospect in Dak Prescott. I don't even know if Dak was a 3-star, but either way, took a quarterback prospect in Dak Prescott at Mississippi State and turned him into an elite collegiate quarterback. And Mississippi State was a lot more better football team because of it when he coached there. And that's the guy by the name of Dan Mullen. And I know I talked about this last year on last year's podcast. I know there were some episodes where we were in the same predicament. Billy Napier wasn't performing. Gator fans were in an uproar, fire Billy, you name it. And here we are, a year later, having the same discussion. And don't get me wrong, a lot of y'all drank the Kool-Aid, and I sipped on it. I wouldn't say I drank the Kool-Aid on the Florida Gators this offseason, but I sipped on it a little bit because I felt like DJ Lagway would take a step forward. I felt like the program would take a step forward as a whole. I honestly felt like they had the roster to be a decent football team in the Southeastern Conference. I'm not saying that they were going to go 10-2 or 11-1 and win the SEC and go to the playoff, but I feel like 8-4 was very realistic. Maybe 9-3 was their ceiling. I feel like their floor could very well easily be 6-6. We're looking more towards like the floor being the ceiling now after Saturday's performance. Because that, guys, I'm just gonna say, as someone who doesn't try to hide my Georgia fandom, I loved every second of it, but that was atrocious. That was an atrocious performance. You had players undisciplined. You had players out of position. DJ Lagway didn't look good. DJ Lagway actually looked like he has regressed. And, when you look at him last year at times, it was like, man, this kid's going to be really good next year. You get another year in the offense, get him another year learning the playbook, another offseason conditioning regimen. You name it, he's going to be better. And then, I don't know. I mean, it looks to me like he's regressed a little bit. And, yes, a lot of that falls on the coach, but here's the thing. I think the bombshell thing that I'd like to discuss here about Florida. Here's what the problem is with the Florida Gators. It's the Florida fans. It's the fan base. It's the boosters. And you know why? Because you ran a competent and a good football coach out of Gainesville because he made one comment in a press conference that y'all took completely out of context. A reporter was asking Dan Mullen in a press conference during the football season, a recruiting-based question, and Dan Mullen said, "We will talk about recruiting when it's recruiting season." He was right in the middle of prep for a game and right in the middle of a football season. But Gator fans heard that and said, Dan Mullen's not recruiting. Oh, no, we can't have that. And you toss him out. And now you've got Billy Napier. In my opinion, you went from Sam's Club to Dollar Tree. And a lot of y'all will get the reference. But you went from Sam's Club to Dollar Tree on that front. You went from Corvette to a Corolla. I never understood the Billy Napier hire. Unproven head coach. Only proven at the FCS level. G5 level, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, he's been an assistant in the SEC, but we have seen that not all SEC assistants pan out to be good head coaches in the SEC. We've seen that in certain circumstances. But here's the thing. Florida fans, you made your bed, you're laying in it now. And if you just hang on to Dan Mullen and you don't, grab your torch and pitchforks and run him out of Gainesville because he made one comment that you completely took out of context at a press conference, who knows where you're at? But hey, Napier is 500 as a head coach of the Florida Gators, 20-20 as of Saturday. What a great way to even that win-loss total by losing to the University of South Florida. One of the most embarrassing losses I've seen for the Florida Gators in recent memory, aside from the Georgia Southern loss. And the thing about it is, the Georgia Southern loss, at least you had a lot of key players injured for that game. At least you were kind of fighting one-legged, so to speak. And you had some players injured. It still doesn't excuse the fact that you lost to Georgia Southern, because you still lost to Georgia Southern. But you had a lot of players injured. There was a lot of underlying issues. It was, I'm just saying, there's a little bit more ammunition there to use to defend yourself. The one Saturday, there's no defending that. None at all. Florida fans, and don't get me wrong, I'm not taking direct shots at y'all. I'm not taking direct shots. I've got good friends that are Florida fans. I've got family, you name it. This is not a personal attack. I'm just telling you, the fan base is the one responsible for the mess that you're in right now. The fan base called for Dan Mullen's head. You got it. And then you replaced him with Billy Napier. And you're expecting progression, and you got regression. I understand it. It's frustrating. But you did it to yourselves. And let's just say the loss to South Florida, after that, I don't know. I mean, when you look forward, so when we look forward here at the remaining schedule for the Florida Gators, let's check this out really quick. I'll pull it up on my screen. We'll look through it, and we'll talk about it, and we'll go through this. And you don't, like I've said 100 times on this podcast, you don't have to agree with me. But here's the thing. And I'm going to be real blunt with you here. This weekend, you go to Death Valley. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. Then you go to Miami. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. Then Texas comes to the Swamp on October 4th. You're going to get beat. Then you go to A&M. After what I saw Saturday, you're going to get beat. Mississippi State comes to the Swamp on October 18th. From what I saw Saturday, that could very well be a loss. Then you play Georgia in Jacksonville. You're going to get your teeth kicked in. Then you go to Kentucky. That's never one that Florida has. That's never a game that Florida coasts to victory in. That's here recently. That game has been very, very hard fought for Florida. So that could very well be another loss. That's a toss-up game. So right now, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sure losses, 2 toss-ups. Then you got Ole Miss in Oxford. That's a loss. You got Tennessee in the Swamp. That's a loss. And you got Florida State. I think from what we've seen so far in the sample size we got, that's a loss too. You're talking about 3-9 or 4-8. We're not talking about 8-4 or 9-3 anymore. Not after what I saw Saturday. If that's the kind of effort that you're going to put out week in and week out, I see 4 wins at best on this schedule. I make the argument that you could potentially beat Mississippi State in the Swamp, and you could potentially beat Kentucky on the road. Other than that, I don't see another win on your schedule. And it's just me being real. And, you feel like you watch these teams, you feel like you want to see some progression, especially in a coach like Billy Napier, who's been in the program the years that he has, but we haven't seen any progression. We have seen nothing but regression. Gator fans are irate. I saw a message board post from a guy that said his wife got deported, and he was more upset at Billy Napier than he was at ICE. That'll tell you exactly how frustrated Gator fans are with the whole thing in general. So, I mean, I don't know. I'd love to hear from some of you Florida fans that are out there. Reach out to me. Let's talk about it. Let's see where your head's at, because that's where I'm at. I'm not even going to try to make the argument for 5-7. I'm definitely not going to try to make the argument for a bowl game berth at this very moment right now. Absolutely not. So, moving on to that. So we had a couple teams. So we had 3 teams that I want to point out that maybe, didn't perform, kind of underperformed a little bit, didn't perform up to expectations. And one of them, was scary, so to speak. But let's talk about first. Let's talk about Georgia and Austin Peay. So this game, was very weird to me from the jump. You have a kickoff time that gets bumped up to 2:30 as opposed to 3:30. You get inclement weather in the area. A lot of things going on with this particular game and around this game that just spelled like this was going to be one of those sluggish performances. And Georgia fans, you've seen it. You've seen these type of performances in Athens over the last few years. You saw the Kent State game here just a few years ago, 39-22, the final score. Georgia, took them 3.5 quarters to really, or a little bit over 3 quarters to pull away from Kent State. Up until that point, they were in a pretty tight matchup with Kent State that year. That team went on to win a national championship. And I'm not making that point because I think there are some very glaring concerns on that Georgia football team as of right now. I'll go into them in just a second. But as a Georgia fan, speaking to more Georgia fans, pump the brakes. Because I watched the Kent State game too, and a lot of the people that are saying the things that, oh man, looks terrible, this looks terrible, this looks terrible, that's the same people that were saying that about Kent State, the Kent State game. The same people are saying those kinds of things right now. And all I'm trying to tell you is, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's cool it. Kirby notoriously, from the time he's been in Athens, has notoriously been the type of guy, if he opens the season with games like this, he generally tends to keep his cards very close to his chest. I would not be shocked if Kirby and Bobo have had conversations behind closed doors about pulling back on the reins a little bit, not showing our hand, being conservative, whatever you want to call it, vanilla, whatever. It's beside the point. But here's the biggest thing about it. And here, as a Georgia fan, analyzing this game, the things that concern me the most. The offensive line play is not at all where we expected it to be, or where we are looking at it and expecting it to be this year. Now, there are some injury concerns primarily on the right side of that offensive line, and Georgia had problems running the football to the right side. So, there's reports out there that Ernest Green, the starting right tackle, will be back for the Tennessee game this upcoming Saturday. And I could tell you, after watching and going back and watching some film on it and watching the game twice, definitely some concerns on the right side of that offensive line. The other concern that I have is watching Gunnar Stockton almost appear to me like he is scared to pull the trigger on balls down the field. Because I'm going to be pretty blunt with you, and I might upset some people right now that don't like Mike Bobo. I'm by no means a Bobo defender. I'm not a Mike Bobo defender. I'll be the first one to say that there's sometimes we call some plays that have me just absolutely scratching my head and want me to bang my head against the wall. What I will tell you is, if you don't know ball and you don't understand football, just keep your mouth shut. Because if you see Georgia in a four-wide set, one receiver's running a dig, one's running a cross, one's running a dig, and one's running a go. And we throw a screen, or we throw a ball to the receiver in the flat, or a running back in the flat. I want you to know something, and I'm gonna learn you something, as we say down south. That wasn't the play call. That wasn't the design for the ball to go to the running back in the flat or in the backfield. I need y'all to understand that is a check down. So when you say, all Bobo's calling is a bunch of check downs and screens and passes to the running back in the backfield, well, genius, that's really not the play call. The play call was designed to go to the crossing route or the go route. But those reads weren't there, and our quarterback checks it down. That is a quarterback decision. Quit making yourself look like idiots online, please, for the love of God. Like, please. If you don't understand ball and you don't understand the schematics of it, the play calling aspect of it, or anything like that, just cheer for the team and cheer when they score a touchdown and kick a field goal. And, and other than that, and aside from that, keep your mouth shut. Like, it does no good. You make us look like idiots. But I'm not saying that I'm tired of the Bobo slander, because he earns it sometimes. But golly, if y'all don't make it 10 times worse, because you just don't understand the game. You just don't. He's not calling those plays. He's calling a play that's designed to go to Zachariah Branch on the dig route. And we're throwing it to, you name it, Dwight Phillips, Chauncey Bowens, whoever, whatever running back's in the backfield. we're checking it down to that guy because those reads are covered. Or Gunner doesn't feel comfortable turning the ball loose, which I saw a lot Saturday. And that's concerning to me too for Georgia going forward. Is there was a lot of cases on Saturday where there were receivers open. And Gunner just wouldn't turn it loose. To me, that's concerning. Because in order to beat a team like Tennessee or beat a team like Alabama, you're going to have to push the ball down the field and make the defense respect you. You have to take the top off the defense. Otherwise, they're going to crowd the box with 8 guys. They're going to stuff your run, and then you're out of it. You've got to make them respect the ball going down the field. So, couple concerning things with Georgia. They bump, the latest AP poll, they bump out of the top 5. I think that's fair. I do not see this, even as a fan, I do not see this Georgia team as a top 5 team right now. Now, they can definitely change my mind this Saturday, which we will talk about that game later in the week on Thursday's episode. But they don't look like a top 5 team right now. And, there's a lot of issues. I have faith, and a lot of people should, that Kirby's going to get the issues situated this week, for lack of better terminology. Y'all have seen the videos. Guarantee I know what's going on in Athens this week. But other than that, we'll move into Troy Clemson was another game that I wasn't really paying that much attention to it, to be honest with you. I was watching other games. I only have so many screens, so I can only watch so many football games at a time. And I will say, though, I did turn it over there. I actually put it on my multi-view or whatever. When I saw it was 16-0, Troy. Things were getting pretty interesting in Clemson, South Carolina, when Troy goes up 16-0. Clemson escapes 27-16. They score 27 unanswered points, which you never really had a feeling that they were in danger, but for a minute there, I guarantee you Dabo was sweating it a little bit. And a lot of Clemson fans probably were as well. But, Cade Klubnik, Bryant Wesco Jr., and a lot of that offense, they got got fired up, came out of the half in the third quarter, scored 17 points. And, that was just the, once they scored the 17, they went up 17-16. Everybody kind of thought, that's pretty much it. They've kind of not ran away with it, but they're gonna pull away. They're back in the groove, so to speak. I never got like a Florida feel about Clemson against Troy. I always had a kind of, even when they were down 16-0, I was like, surely there's no way, like Clemson's gonna come back. Now I will say this. I had Clemson. I was very high on Clemson, very bullish on them to start the season. They got to show me a lot before I start to trust them again, because this kind of performance, you can, and this is not a disrespect to Troy or anything, but you can do this against Troy. You can't do that against a Florida State. You can't do that against a insert whatever team they're playing, a South Carolina. Good team. Can't do that against a good team. You can't turn the ball over a couple times. You can't get in a 16-point hole to these good teams, because you're not going to be able to dig your way out of those. You can dig your way out of the hole against Troy, but you're not going to be able to dig your way out of it against a team like, Florida State, South Carolina, whoever. So, big one there, dodged a bullet for sure. Some aren't so lucky, but you dodged a bullet. The other one that kind of shocked me was, LSU. That was another one that I felt like with Louisiana Tech, 23-7, the final score on that one, left me kind of scratching my head on that one as well, because LSU never felt like they could get into any kind of rhythm. And sure, anytime, they only had the one turnover. They had 36-plus minutes of time of possession. And when you look at the stats, Louisiana Tech, 58 yards rushing on 27 attempts, 96 yards passing, 154 total yards, 3 for 13 on third down. If you don't look at the score, you'd think, man, pretty good defensive performance there by LSU. And, you look at LSU's output, looks pretty great. 4 yards a carry, essentially, on offense, 237 passing yards. Garrett Nussmeier, very efficient, 1 interception, nearly 37 minutes of time of possession, but 23-7. Just a very sluggish performance from LSU. I felt like it was just one of those weekends. It was weird. It was almost like something in the air. You had a lot of top teams that were just not really performing like we would expect them to. But then you also had the contrast to that. You had Ohio State scoring 70 points and shutting out Grambling 70-0. You had Florida State, likewise, East Texas A&M 77-3. Knowles, big offensive output for them as well. Alabama, you had Alabama shutting out UM Monroe and winning 73-0. You had Tennessee beating East Tennessee State University. It's 72-17. So Texas Tech, Kent State, 62-14. Utah, Cal Poly, 63-9. Just a lot of blowouts. The biggest one, another one that I was very, on one of my picks, one of my spread picks and outright upset picks, I picked Duke over Illinois, and Illinois took care of business, y'all. 45-19, the final score there for Brett Bielema, Luke Altmaier, and that football team. They were impressive. I know I was very critical of them last week when I went through the AP poll, and I said that they were not, I didn't feel like they were deserving of the ranking. Well, they looked pretty sharp on Saturday. Altmaier just shows that he's very poised. He's experienced. He's an experienced quarterback. He's been around a lot. It's like the Farmers commercial. He knows a thing or two because he's seen a thing or two, and he has. He's been in college a long time. He's been a quarterback a while. You're not going to throw anything at him that he hasn't seen. Brett Bielema, also good football coach. Illinois is definitely a very experienced football team. A lot of those guys on that football team been in that program for multiple years, and that to me, that is still a winning formula. People can talk about bringing in 40 or 50 players in the portal every year, but to me, you build a team that wants to fight for one another and that is in the program for multiple years and understands the system, understands expectation. There's more of a brotherhood aspect to that there, and I just feel like that team is going to perform better, regardless. But, Illinois, 45-19 over Duke, just a absolute bloodbath there in Durham, North Carolina, just really shocked me. I'm honest. I picked Duke to win outright. They were kind of like a super dog for me for the week, and just ultimately, couldn't do it, couldn't hang around, and just looked completely outclassed by Illinois. One other game this weekend that I was very, I was kind of bouncing back and forth watching it. 2 games actually, is Mississippi State and Arizona State. Mississippi State gets a big win over the 12th ranked Arizona State Sun Devils, 24-20. A lot of people thought all hope was lost when Arizona State went up 20-17 with they kicked a field goal, a minute and 30 left, I think, in the football game. And then Mississippi State gets the ball back, 30 seconds left on the clock. Brennan Thompson throws a 58-yard pass to my bad. Brennan Thompson caught the pass from Blake Shapen, and 58 yards in for the score, 24-20, your final. They tore the goalpost down, stormed the field. Apparently it's a $500,000 fine. Going to be more than a $500,000 fine for for Mississippi State University. But what a big win for that group. Jeff Levy, just, it seems like a great guy to me. And, that's the kind of guys you like seeing win. You like seeing them beat the reigning Big 12 champions. The team that finished dead last in the SEC last year beats the reigning Big 12 champions. But, we're going to, we'll leave that alone for just a little bit anyway. A lot of y'all are still kind of, some people are still licking their wounds and some people still want to talk smack about the SEC. But, That's one of those instances right there where you can just prove and say, hey, where Mississippi State finished in the conference last year. Where did Arizona State finish in their conference? Exactly. Michigan, Oklahoma. Yeah, so this score, I predicted this score last week. I was really close to predicting the final score. Michigan, just to me, Bryce Underwood just looked to me like the lights were a little bit too bright for him. I feel like the kid's going to be great. He's still going to be good, immensely talented. Just needs more time to grow and develop. And, as a freshman playing quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines, obviously he's going to play. They're paying him way too much money for him not to be on the football field and playing. But he's going to have to grow as he goes. And this is definitely an experience that I think he'll look back on and he'll look at this and he's like, man, I can really grow from that. I can learn. But Oklahoma, John Mateer's the class of the field right now as far as quarterback play. And as far as in the SEC, as far as maybe in all of college football, to me, John Mateer is the class of the field. He's looked as good as advertised for this Oklahoma offense. He looks like he's just the spark that the Oklahoma offense needed. 21 of 34, 270 yards, a touchdown and interception, and also added 19 carries for 74 yards and a couple touchdowns. Just all over the field, doing everything. Dare I say he kind of reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield? Just saying. Just watching him play, very gunslinger-esque. Probably is the best way to put it. No fear. Just he's going to turn loose of the rock. He's going to throw it. And if it's not there, he's going to take off running. And very effective scrambler. And just, Oklahoma looks much improved from last year to this year. Definitely. They're going to just only get better from here. And with the quarterback play that they're getting from John Mateer, just insane. Ole Miss let me down. Come on. I picked Ole Miss to cover the spread, and they go in and try to give it away to Kentucky. But, Kentucky was winning at the end of the first quarter, 7-0. Then Ole Miss scores 17 in the second quarter. Ends up being 17-13 at the half. And then kind of was back and forth for the rest of the game after that. But Ole Miss never could generate any kind of separation. They always let Kentucky hang around within a score the whole game. Very dangerous spot there. It's how you lost last year to this Kentucky team. But ultimately, Lane Kiffin and his guys get the win in Lexington, which is not exactly a easy place to play by any stretch of the imagination. But, Ole Miss, ultimately, you want to win football games. That's where we're at. A win is a win, and, you want to win. And but they go in to Lexington, get the win, and Lane Kiffin and those guys, don't know what to think about them just yet. Austin Simmons still making some mistakes. They're definitely not as dynamic as they were last year on the offensive side of the ball with, back then, last year with Jackson Dart. And the defense is just not as good as it was last year either. So jury's still kind of out on Ole Miss. We'll see moving forward if they're going to improve. Defense is going to get better. Offense is going to get better, whatever. We'll see, and moving into this upcoming week, we're going to start seeing some tougher competition. We'll talk about the games. We'll talk about the games that we'll see on Saturday. We'll talk about that on Thursday's episode, like I said earlier. Now we're going to dive into a few segments one segment that I'd like to call up. This one here is, to me, it's just a funny thing to go look sometimes if I've ever got a free moment, free few minutes. I always like to go to Message Board Geniuses. Shout out Message Board Geniuses on Twitter. But we'll go through and read a couple of these off. And to me they're just funny. But we will go into, I'd like to start with, I think I already covered one. I covered one let's see. I covered one about Billy Napier. The guy, He said his wife got deported, and he's more upset with Billy Napier than he is with ICE. So we already talked about that one. Of course, Florida fans are calling for John Gruden. They're calling for they're calling for Dan Lanning, which is not going to happen. So here's one. Florida fans says ABKMD 2018 says boycott the swamp until Billy is fired. Says don't attend games until the cancer that is Billy Napier and his gang of saboteurs are purged from Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. The UAA needs to understand that this is not what Gator football is. Use the money to go to basketball games and support TG and the national champs. That's one. All right. So let's move on to an Arizona State fan. Arizona State says ASU needs to sue Mississippi State for fraud. Cowbell ringing has to stop as soon as the center has the ball, but they only got louder. Any lawyers on here that can weigh in? First off, I don't think that's a legal issue. Funny enough, a lot of people will agree with you. Don't get me wrong, because you're not allowed to take artificial noisemakers into any other football stadium. If I take a air horn into Sanford Stadium to go to a Georgia game, they're going to take it from me. So I understand the point that we're trying to make here. That's not crazy. Here's the crazy one. Georgia fans, listen to this. Zester House on a Rivals board for the Georgia Bulldogs says Kirby has no one to be upset at but himself. Made no changes from last year, but expecting better results. Mark Richt 2.0. Zester House, if you listen to the podcast, I'm just going to go ahead and be as nice as I can and say that you are an absolute freaking moron. And I'm going to leave it at that. All right. Alabama fans, stickers on helmets. Hustle stickers. Trying to think outside the box here to motivate the team. I know our fan base considers our helmets to be sacred, but would anyone be opposed to the players who hustle the most every week getting a sticker? Top 5 on offense, defense, special teams, or something like that. And that comes from Slippin' Jimmy. If you've got to motivate your team with a stupid helmet sticker, I swear, sometimes college football is way too 2025 for me. Bring back the earlier days of college football. Bring back the mid-2000s brand of college football, because this participation trophy, you do good, I'm going to slap a sticker on your helmet and everything like that and make you play better. No, absolutely not. That's some participation trophy little everybody gets a juice box and pack of crackers type junk right there from Alabama. And I expect better from Alabama fans. So if you know a guy if you know a guy that goes by Slippin' Jimmy, please give him a good slap across the face from old Colby here at After the Whistle, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Moving on to, let's do a couple more. We got time for a couple more. Clemson. So this Clemson fan wishes that Dabo had left 5 years ago. Death Valley _13 says a total embarrassment. Wish he would have rode off into the sunset 5 years ago. Well, I can tell you, Clemson and Death Valley _13, you're not going to find a better option to coach your football team than Dabo Swinney. There's nobody out there that wants to come to Clemson. There's nobody out there that's going to take that job. All the marquee coaches and the big names that you would find that would fill that spot are very much settled into their respective jobs. Oh man, a lot of meltdowns. Lot of meltdowns. Let's see. We got some Michigan fans. Let's see what we got. I'm trying to keep it PG, guys. Sorry, I'm having to scroll a little bit. Trying to keep it PG. Okay. Sharon Moore. Okay, this one's Beer Pong Sniper. Sharon Moore is a dead man walking. I give him 2 more years when only 1 is warranted. Sharon, and this one comes from Leroy. Sharon ain't it. I'm out on him. This is awful. Okay. I'll tend to agree. I don't get the I don't get the Sharon Moore hype. Anyway, Virginia Tech. We got one more. This Virginia Tech Hokey 0015 says, seriously, just burn it all to the ground. We have to retire it. Stop playing Sandman. Come on, man. That's a tradition. We can't be doing that. Can't be doing that at all. So, real-time questions. I've actually got some I've got some questions that have been submitted today. We're going to go over those right now. Going to answer a few key questions. I had them written down. So this comes from a Florida fan. Billy Napier done at Florida. This comes from Gator27 on Twitter. Sent me a DM. Says, is Billy Napier done at Florida? What if he wins a couple key games down the stretch? Okay. It's a good question. 2-part question. Love to answer it. So, Billy Napier, to me, I don't think there's anything that could save his job this year. Unless the only thing, and this is like act of God type stuff right here, win out, make the playoff, win the national championship. I think that's the only thing that saves Billy Napier's job this year. I really do. So to answer the question, I think he's done. I think he's done. I honestly think if he loses maybe 1 or 2 more games, he's fired midseason. That's where I'm at on it. But second part of this question, what if he wins a couple key games down the stretch? So I don't know. I don't think so. I think if Napier beats Georgia and Florida State, let's just say that. Let's say he beats Georgia and Florida State. Let's say he still finishes the season 6-6 or 5-7, and he beats Georgia and Florida State. I still don't think he saves his job. I still think he's fired at the end of the year. I think we just talked about it a minute ago we saw on the message boards about somebody being a dead man walking. I think Billy Napier's a dead man walking. I think it's just a matter of time. It's not an if, but when type thing for him. So, all right. So let's move on to who were my early Heisman favorites. Oh, man, this is a really good one. I really glad that somebody asked me this because I thought about this today and actually just jotted down some notes. And I've got some surprises in here. But, well, not really some surprises, but some that, might surprise you, so to speak. So, to me, my number one, John Mateer. From the body of work we've seen so far out of John Mateer, to me, he's got to be leading the discussion at this very moment. John Mateer from Oklahoma, number one. Garrett Nussmeier, for me, is number two. And I'm going to give you my top. I'm going to give you my top 4. Garrett Nussmeier is number 2 for me. Tommy Castellanos, Florida State, number 3. Florida State quarterback's number 3 in the Heisman race, in my opinion. Number 4, Dante Moore, quarterback at Oregon. That's my top 4 right now in the Heisman race. If I could pick who the Heisman race was between at this very moment, it would be John Mateer, Garrett Nussmeier, Tommy Castellanos, and Dante Moore. And all I can say is great competitors. It's going to be really good if we continue to see the growth from those guys, because Tommy Castellanos, with that Florida State team, seems like it's been a perfect fit for him. And same with John Mateer. Seems like Oklahoma was a perfect fit for him. Dante Moore is a very, very good quarterback. Go take a look at him. Take a gander at that guy. Tell me he's not dynamic. And then, of course, Garrett Nussmeier is Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season this year. Just a gunslinger that can really spin the rock. I've been high on Garrett Nussmeier for a while. I was high on him last year, and same this year. and there's not a whole lot that's going to change my mind unless he just absolutely implodes, which I don't see happening. I had another thought, and I'll do this, and then I'm going to go through the AP rankings, and then we'll be done for today's show. But I thought about this for a second, and as I'm watching Kansas State lose to Army this weekend, which, by the way, wow, embarrassing. It's almost like somebody a couple weeks ago told y'all that Avery Johnson wasn't all that and Kansas State wasn't all that, but you didn't listen. But now they're 0-2. Let's listen. But going to Ireland, I'm not a big superstitious person. It's like Michael Scott says on The Office. If you're an Office fan like I am, he says, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. And I will say I am a little stitious. But I will say that the two teams, it's almost like if you go to Ireland to start the season and you lose that game, you're cursed for the rest of the year. Like you're going to have your worst season to date if you lose in Ireland to open the season. We saw it with Florida State last year. Lose to Georgia Tech in Ireland, week 0. They proceeded to have their worst season in school history, right? And then you see the 360 this year, just the flipper, the quick turnaround, bam. Like, who's this team, right? And then we see Kansas State go to Ireland, lose. They're on pace to have a terrible season. They've got a lot of games still to be played that they could very well lose. Very well lose. And losing to Army is just not, I don't know, man. I don't see a lot for them moving forward. Avery Johnson, I know I've been critical of him. I just don't think he's it. I don't think he's that good. But you lose to Army, and here we are looking at you're not winless. You beat North Dakota by 3 points. You beat North Dakota by a field goal. I don't know if any Kansas State fans listen, but I would get corrected on that. Trust me. But you lose to Iowa State. You squeak by North Dakota, a G05 team, not even a G05 team, it's an FCS school. You squeak by them by a field goal. You get beat by Army by 3 points. Now you go to Arizona. Arizona's favored to win that football game. Then you play UCF. You play Baylor. That's a loss. You play TCU. That's a loss. You play Kansas. That's a loss. You play Texas Tech. That's a loss. Oklahoma State, you might win that one because Oklahoma State is dog water too. Utah, you're going to get your eyes beat out in that one. Colorado at the end of the season, who knows? You might get beat by Colorado as well. Kansas State could be looking down the barrel at 3-9 or 4-8 at the very best. So I would just say, hey, if you get a call from Aer Lingus or whatever to play in the kickoff game in week 0 for college football, go to Ireland and play your season opener, don't do it. It will curse you for that season because we've seen this. We've already seen it. It's 2 years in a row now. One team went 2-10 last year after losing in Ireland. One team's 1-2 after losing in Ireland. So wouldn't really recommend it. Not at all. Don't pick up the phone when Aer Lingus comes calling and asks you to play in that week 0 game. I believe it's cursed. Just happened to have that thought earlier. I thought it was funny, and I thought I'd share with y'all. So, updated AP Top 25. We're going to run through this real quick. Mizzou at 25, Auburn at 24, Michigan falls back to 23, Indiana 22, the Texas Tech Red Raiders are at 21, Utah 20, Alabama 19, USF, the big jumper, up to 18, which, sneaky good resume. They have 2 ranked wins. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not saying they're top 10 team. I'm just saying they got 2 ranked wins. Ole Miss at 17, Texas A&M at 16, Tennessee at 15, Iowa State 14, Oklahoma 13th, Clemson 12th, South Carolina 11th, Florida State 10th, Illinois 9th, Notre Dame 8th, Texas at 7, Georgia at 6, Miami at 5, Oregon at 4, LSU at 3, Penn State at 2, and The Ohio State University at number 1. So that's your updated AP Top 25. that's gonna I mean, I feel like that's gonna wrap it up for us. I mean, I've had my fill of ragging on Florida fans and everything else. It's just it's fun to do sometimes, but then again, I feel y'all's pain, man. I'm just not, I'm not attacking you personally. I'm just saying, hey, you wanted Mullen gone and you got Napier, and here we go. What is it? Huh? Billy, not now. No, Billy, no, not now. Leave me alone. I'm recording a podcast. I'm going to hop off here. Let me go take care of Billy. Apparently he's pretty upset and he's on the ring camera. They won't let him in the facilities. So, till next time, I'll catch y'all Thursday on After the Whistle. We'll see y'all later.